Hey, hey, hey. Welcome back to the House of Trauma podcast with your favorite podcast host. Back again. My name is Kiana Brienne. Now let's get into it. So if you don't know by now, you about to find out one thing about me. I'm going to mention God. I am. I'm going to do that. I am a lover of God, the Most High God, the great I am, the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings, Jesus Christ. Amen. However, I don't identify as religious, okay? I identify as spiritual. And I'm eerie on using the term Christian and identifying as religious due to the corruption in the church and the holier-than-thou Christians that feel it's their job to judge and crucify everyone who does not meet their standard of what they feel like a Christian should walk like, talk like, dress like, act like, eat like. And I spoke about this in one of my very first episodes, The Perfect Christian. If you have not heard it, you are probably living under a rock. So I strongly encourage you to go back and listen to The Perfect Christian, where I go into a little bit more detail on what I consider a holier-than-thou Christian. Okay. So in 2020, like many other things, I started my spiritual journey. And I remember writing down in my journal that I was starting my spiritual journey, and I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I just had a list of goals of things I was going to do in 2020, and starting my spiritual journey was what it was. And I mentioned many episodes, but in the most recent episode, The Pandemic That Changed My Life, in the beginning of 2020, I was touched by Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts, and it inspired me to build a relationship, to rebuild a relationship with God, and to grow with the Holy Spirit. I decided I wanted to feed my spirit more than my flesh, and, to get to know God again. But my spiritual journey consisted of so many things than just going to church, praying, and reading my Bible. Firstly, I want to talk about the term New Age spirituality and what it is. And I want to give it the disclaimer that I am by no means a spiritual guru, teacher. I'm not a master. I don't have all the answers. This is not a play-by-play on spirituality. I can't tell you what to do right or what to do wrong. This is just me speaking from my truth, from my own personal experience and how I grew my spiritual life. Okay, so New Age spirituality. First of all, I want to start off by saying there is nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, new under the sun. Let's start there. And New Age spirituality, as it is called, is frowned upon. Quite frankly, it's frowned upon in the church and amongst people who are not even in the church because it's seen as demonic. People don't see, can't see, don't want to see how spirituality and Christianity, or someone who is considered a believer in Christ, can coexist. But I'm here to tell you it is very much possible, so hang in with me. And I personally don't like to speak on things that I don't know anything about, or I have not done my research on, or I don't fully know the facts, right? If there's a topic I want to speak on, I'm going to dig into the facts. This topic in particular is just my life. So when I say speaking on the facts, it's the people who frown upon New Age spirituality without having all the facts. So first and foremost, speaking of the Bible, the book of Exodus speaks, and this is in the Old Testament, the book of Exodus speaks on crystals. And chapter 28, verses 9, and so on and so on and so on, it speaks of burning sage or incense. The Bible speaks on manifestation in the book of Mark, chapter 11, verses 20 to 24. And I bring these things up because they are ridiculed. But they played a huge role in my spiritual journey. And I want you to think about these things in particular as I continue on to explain just how my spiritual journey has grown over time, the things that exist within my spiritual life, and how they coincide. So I'm a crystal holding shawty, okay? I keep crystals in my purse, under my pillows, in my pockets. I keep them everywhere, and no, it is not witchcraft. Please save it, okay? But I remember buying my first crystals in June of 2020. I just Googled a holistic store. I drove to this holistic store in Dallas, and I went in there, and I didn't even know what I was looking for. I just walked around that store for maybe an hour, hour and a half, and I just looked at different crystals, read what they were about, and I took 6 crystals home that day. And it's kind of crazy. I think one of the first crystals I picked up was pyrite. Pyrite is considered a money stone. Okay, 2020 was all about getting this money. And when I first walked over to it, it was just interesting. It was really small, little silver. But yeah, I picked up pyrite. One of my first crystals was a money stone because, period, we getting this money forever and always. But there's a lot of negativity surrounding crystals. Again, it's considered witchcraft. People think that if you have a crystal, you're doing weird things with it. But see, crystals hold energy, as does everything in this world. And as I mentioned before, the book of Exodus speaks on crystals. At least 12. At least 12. Could be more. And one of the main things that the crystals were used for in the book of Exodus was for protection. So again, crystals hold financial energy, protective energy, grounding energy, things like that, which is why I carry certain crystals with me, and they're all of the earth and things like that. And I keep them in different places for different reasons. So for instance, my rose quartz, I keep it under my pillow. It promotes healing and self-love, and I can get that energetically while I'm sleeping or anytime I'm laying in bed, things like that. And so I think one of the main reasons that crystals get a bad rep is people look at them and consider them as false idol worship. So we know in the Bible that God says you shall not worship false idols. Exodus 20:4 says not to make images for yourself in the form of anything in heaven, above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down and worship. Worship an object or an image. God is your only form of worship. And so I tell people all the time, nobody is on their knees, bowing down, worshiping their crystals. Like, that is just a negative connotation I had to get off my chest. So I will have to strongly disagree that crystals are false idols being worshipped in place of God the Most High. Let's start there. And so, okay, remember, everything holds energy. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It's like the law of physics or something like that. So a huge part of my spiritual journey was learning how to raise my vibration. And I think it was like an incident a while ago. It like went viral with Coach Stormy, or I don't even know what it is that she does, but I seen the video on TikTok, and Coach Stormy was telling a girl that her plate was low vibrational. And as I'm watching the video, I'm like, I don't even know that you know, or that she knows what it means to be low vibrational and to live in a low vibration. So there are things that you can do, certain activities you can participate in, certain things that you eat, things that you watch that can contribute to lowering your vibration or raising your vibration. And so when something or someone is vibrating at a low frequency, it feels heavy, like you feel heavy. Whereas when you're vibrating with a higher frequency, you feel lighter and more at ease. So low vibrational energies can include emotions such as sadness or stress On the contrary, higher vibrational energies include happiness, joy, love. And the reason I think it's important, so people talk about low vibration without even realizing they're living in low vibration, okay? And I think it's important to raise your vibration because you move differently. Because again, low vibration can be contributed to things like sadness and depression. And we know that if you're living in that type of energy, it's hard to get things accomplished. It's hard to believe in yourself. It's hard to go through basic day-to-day life when you're on a low frequency versus when you're on a high frequency. And remember, the highest frequency of all is love. So when you're happy, when you're joyful, when you're loved, when you're not doing things with malicious intent, when you're going out into the world with optimism, you're living on a high vibration. And I like to consider myself an optimist. And I try to, every day is not perfect, but I try to do the best I can. I try to be the best person that I can be. And I try to stay within a high vibration. So some things that I learned to do, or that I begun doing in my spiritual journey, to raise my vibration. Number one is meditating, like, period, point blank, period. If you're not meditating, I feel like any work that you're doing spiritually, right? Even if for spirituality, for you, it's just like me, or if your spiritual journey is something totally different, any work that you're doing in the spirit, if you're not adding meditation into it, it's like, what are you even doing, right? But like, it's important to not be concerned with the worldly things like gossip, reality TV. Like when I first started my spiritual journey, I remember getting a call from one of my friends, and she wanted to talk about something that was so old, and it was just gossip. It was boring. It was whack. It was miserable. And I told her, like, hey, I got to get off the phone. I really don't have time for this right now, because my spirit wasn't there anymore. I wasn't living on that low vibration that she was stuck on. I didn't want to gossip. I didn't want to talk about people. Like, I was 25 years old, and you're calling me about some bullshit beef from high school. Like, girl, please. Please. It's been 7 years. We got to let it go. But I was just in a much happier place. I was waking up earlier. I no longer needed to use my vices such as smoking weed all the time, or like drinking, or any bad habits that I picked up to cope with life's negative experiences. When I was vibrating higher, I no longer needed those things. And it felt good. And it wasn't even like I was sitting there and I was like, yeah, my vibration is rising. No, it was just something that naturally started to happen when I started to remove negativity, when I started to remove bad habits, when I started to remove bad company. So then I started to gain good company. I started to gain good habits, and naturally my vibration just rose. And again, meditation played a huge role. I mean, absolutely huge role. And I remember the first time I meditated, I started with 5 minutes. And I don't know, I was probably like 2 minutes in, and I'm like, Jesus, I'm ready to open my eyes. I'm like, this is whack. This is boring. Like, get me up out of here. And I think I end up being like, I just can't take it anymore. And I opened my eyes, and I had like 30 seconds to go. And I was a little disappointed, because I'm like, oh, you sat still for 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and you couldn't sit still for 30 more seconds. But again, I didn't know that was how much time was left. But I did it again, and I tried it every day until I went to 10 minutes. Then I kept going, and then 10 turned to 15, to 20, to 30. And now I meditate for an hour easily. A few months ago, I was supposed to be meditating. I was like, I'm just going to do a quick meditation for like 20 minutes or so. Forgot to set the timer. turned on my singing bowl music from Apple Music, and I was just laying there and I was meditating and I was completely relaxed. And then after a while, I was like, I feel like I've been meditating way longer than 20 minutes. And I'm like, no, maybe not. The timer didn't go off. Waited a little while longer. And I'm like, the timer still didn't go off. This is actually a little crazy. So I opened my eyes and I had been meditating for over an hour with ease. I really could have kept going, but I was genuinely concerned on why the timer never went off, and that's because I never said it. And I'm like, maybe I truly needed to do this hour plus long meditation today versus trying to cheat myself and do 20 minutes, because at this point, 20 minutes is a cheat as it pertains to meditation for me personally. And I learned that there are different types of meditation. So first of all, before I do anything, I like to research it, right? So I like research meditation and what it was all about. And there's different types of meditation. And truly, there's no wrong or bad way to do it. Like, some people think that they're doing the meditation wrong if they can't calm their mind, if their mind is still wandering, if they're thinking about other things and you're not just focusing on your breath. And that's very untrue. The fact of the matter is, once you sit down and shut up and meditate, your mind starts to do all the little things that it couldn't do when you were moving 100 miles per hour every single day. And which is why I personally think meditating is so important. When I'm literally like on edge and there's a lot of stuff going on, I learn to just meditate. And whatever else happens, or whatever needs to happen, it's going to have to wait till this meditation is done. Because guess what? It's still going to be there. When it's 20, 30, 45 minutes, it's up. And it's so crazy the amount of people who don't meditate or don't think that it's important or effective, because a lot of people's problems, a lot of y'all problems could be solved by sitting down and shutting up. For real. Eliminate the distractions. Ask yourself, when was the last time you were fully present in the moment? No social media, no TV, no music, no talking, just fully present in the moment you are living in with zero distractions. When was the last time? As a matter of fact, when was the last time you were truly present with God? When was the last time you were quiet enough to hear God's voice? Do you have an answer to that question? And so, see, one of the things I learned, and I continue to learn time and time again, is a lot of times when things aren't necessarily going our way, we just feel like everything in life is falling apart. I had a few moments like that this year. I felt like my world was crashing down around me, and I'm just like, God, where are you? God, where are you? I'm talking to you, I'm praying, but I'm not hearing anything back. God's talking. God is just not yelling. And it wasn't until I sat down, I shut up, I removed all distractions, and I was just present in the moment, quietly meditating and allowing God to speak to me. Not allowing my friends to speak to me. Not allowing social media to speak to me. Right? Not even allowing me to speak to me. Meditation was such a huge... It's so big to me now. Like, every once in a while I do the 21-day fallback journey. And I meditate twice a day. And every couple of days, you increase the amount of time to your meditation. So if you start at 20 minutes, by the end of this, you should at least be at 45 minutes. Meditations twice a day. And I made that a priority. Before I would do anything, when I got up, I'm running behind. 5 minutes late, 20 minutes late. Because I'm going to do this meditation before I go to bed. I'm going to do this meditation because it's going to center me to actually get a good night's rest. I'm an insomniac. I'm always up. But when I shower and meditate, please, knocked out. And when you quiet your mind just long enough, you find that God is always speaking, that the universe is always speaking. And so when I use the term universe, because it's another thing that people tend to frown upon using the word universe. They think it's a replacement for God. It's absolutely not. God is the creator of all life, of the universe. So when I speak about being connected to the universe, I'm speaking about my greater connection with God and all of God's creation. So, as I mentioned in a previous episode, the pandemic that changed my life, I spoke about the night I did shrooms with my brother and my friend in June of 2K20. And I felt the connection with the universe that I had not previously felt, right? I connected with God, Source, the Most High, the great I am, that night. And I won't even try to explain the connection I felt. You see, when you're on psychedelics, it expands your cognitive abilities. The things that society has conditioned us to believe are no longer a factor. Okay? We are looking, seeing, and feeling things outside of our norm. And so I was able to see the world in a different way while on shrooms, a way that honestly I couldn't even describe to somebody who has done shrooms before. Even when I was on shrooms, I could not describe to the people who were doing these psychedelics with me, because it's different for everybody, and that's a fact. But I learned a lot about myself, and I'm actually grateful that I did it that night under the full moon. My discernment grew. See, God gives us the gift of discernment, and it's up to you to use it and strengthen that muscle. And I began to notice and strengthen my spiritual gifts. So I always tell people I have the gift of knowing, right? The gift of knowing. What is that? So sometimes I see things and or dream things, and they manifest into reality. And y'all, I know y'all heard of the term deja vu. Well, my deja vu is on like 10,000. Okay? 10,000. Consistently. Daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. I'm always like, we've been here. Deja vu. This happened. This is going to happen. I can't tell y'all how many times I had a dream of a warning of something. And I'm like, oh, that was just a dream. Like, no big deal. And then a few days later, I'm like, you have got to be kidding me right now. You have got to be kidding me right now. Or sometimes I just know things. Like, my spirit is just telling me something. And I'm like, this is what it is. And they're like, well, Kiana, why do you think that? Or what gave you that notion? And I'm like, nothing. I just know it to be true. And let's just say it's always actual factual. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you have the gift of knowing, you feel me. You know exactly what it is that I'm saying. And I won't get into my clairvoyance, because that's like a whole nother level, and then you're gonna think I'm crazy. But basically, I learned the universe, like, everything is connected. Okay, everything is connected in God's universe, and everything happens in divine timing, which is why even in my waiting seasons, I'm content with knowing that God is going to make it happen exactly when it should, exactly how it should. Simple. Divine timing. Even when everything is falling apart, is falling in shambles, and I have to quiet my self enough to hear God, I know that everything is going to work out. Be still and know that I am God. One of my favorite Bible scriptures. God always has my back, and I find comfort in that. Everything's going to happen exactly as it should when it should. And so, real quick, because I love telling this story, the book of Job in the Bible. If you have not read the book of Job, if there's no other book in the Bible to read, I would say the book of Job, especially if you're going through a rough season, a wilderness season, if you feel like everything's falling apart. So, long story short, in the book of Job, Job was very happy. He was a true man of God. He had everything. He had the family. He was very wealthy, things like that. And in just one day, everything was taken from Job. His kids were killed, all in the same accident. All his livestock was taken. And in biblical times, your livestock was your money. You get what I'm saying? Everything was taken from him, his family, his riches. And Job's friends kind of came to him like, hey, you must have did something to piss God off, because God is a just God. So he would not do these things if you did not deserve them. So backstory, there was a mysterious being in heaven talking to God, basically saying like, hey, Job is only a loyal servant to you because he has all these things. But if he did not have these things, he would not worship you. He would not be loyal to you. And God was just like, okay, but don't touch his life. You can do whatever it is you want to do to try to prove your point, but don't touch Job's life. So at one point, Job, he's just still hanging on strong. And then he's like, God, I demand an explanation for what it is that's going on here. And so God comes to Job and he shows him the universe and how everything works. And he's like, would you even understand why this works this way and why things go like this? And you don't even know the beginning to the end of how the universe works, right? And so I said all that to say, when God is describing to Job about the universe and how he doesn't understand why things work the way they do, why things happen the way they do, all for the greater good of those who love him, that always hits home for me, because we don't know. We don't know why the universe works the way it does. We don't know what's in God's head, because his thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. And we will never understand how everything plays its role, how everything is connected in the universe. I just know that it is. But I can't fully explain why or how everything is connected. I just know that it is. So, and I also have to mention that Job was given everything back tenfold. Yeah, every single thing that Job lost was replaced 10 times over. The family he had before grew. The money, the riches he had before grew. And again, we will never understand why Job lost everything to gain so much more. But I encourage you to read the book of Job in its entirety for more context, because that was a very surface level explanation in comparison to the entire book and all the intricate details of Job and his situation. So just continue to trust in God and know that everything is working out in your best interest. And that was a huge lesson. Again, I learned on shrooms. And you don't have to be on shrooms to learn that lesson, but period, it played a role for me. The universe is always speaking and everything is connected. If you don't get nothing else from everything I just said, moving forward. So, let's talk manifestation, because that was another huge contributor, something that I learned more about during my spiritual journey. And again, manifestation gets a terrible rep, as I mentioned before, but even God's words manifest. Actually, manifestation originated from the Most High. And there are several scriptures in the Bible that talks about manifesting. And if you read your Bible from cover to cover, you'll come across that. So manifestation is, by definition, y'all know I love definitions, an event, action, or object that clearly shows or embodies something, especially a theory or an abstract idea. So there is a relationship between praying and asking God something, not doubting, speaking what you pray for, and the faith muscle inside of you magnetically pulls it over to you. Did you catch that? What scripture is that? So a man thinketh, so he becomes. I think it's in Proverbs. Every thought becomes words, and every word becomes reality. I know y'all heard the scripture, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Another proverb. And again, manifestation gets such a bad rep for being demonic, but the Bible is literally telling you that your thoughts become reality. And again, I'm going to encourage you to read that from cover to cover so you can see just how much the Bible tells you that your thoughts become reality. And that's just a fact. The mind is the most powerful resource that you have, and it doesn't cost you a thing. I mean, I tell people all the time, you can have anything in this life that you want. Why not? You see somebody with something you want. What makes them any better than you? Absolutely nothing. You can literally have anything in this life you want if you believe you can have it. But that's not just to say that you can sit here and be like, I want $1 million, and you're going to keep checking your bank account until the $1 billion get there. No, that's not how that works. You sow a seed, you set a goal, and you take tangible actions to achieve this goal. And I promise you, when you're aligned, God will give it to you. It's just as simple as that. But imagine this. Sitting here doing nothing every day, lazy, wanting $1 million. You're not in line with $1 million. Because why do you deserve $1 million to do absolutely nothing? But actual millionaires and billionaires work their ass off. And it absolutely takes more than just hard work to bring your dreams into fruition. Because I know people who work hard every day, all day, at their 9 to 5, living paycheck to paycheck. But they're hard workers. They try all the time, but they don't believe that they can be better than their 9 to 5. They don't believe that they can have better than living paycheck to paycheck. They don't believe that their situation can be greater than what it is. I actually just had a conversation with my best friend earlier today about my first apartment. It was a 1-bedroom and it was nice, but it was $595 a month. The very last apartment I just moved out of, which was my 4th or 5th apartment, it was $1,850 a month. And when I got my first apartment, I told everybody, I will never pay like $1,200 for rent. Like, that is crazy. That is crazy. But then I seen what a $2,000 a month apartment looked like. And I wanted that. And I remember my very last apartment that I just moved out of, I prayed to God. First of all, I wrote it down. Let's start there. I wrote it down. Putting pen to paper is very important when it comes to manifestation. Then I prayed to God. And I'm like, God, if it is within your will, then I'm going to get this apartment. And I remember apartment hunting and just not really feeling anything. And then me and my friend went to this apartment on a whim. And when we walked in, it was literally down to the motherfucking T. Everything I had wrote on that paper, down to the motherfucking pool view with the balcony. And that wasn't even on my apartment hunting list. It was just an apartment I stumbled upon. It was something that God put in front of me because I really wanted it and it was within his will and I worked hard to get it. And I could have thought to myself that I would never get nothing like that no matter how bad I wanted it, and I would have stayed at the $595 apartment. With no balcony, with no amenities. And again, my first apartment wasn't just like terrible, like trash, but in comparison, like it was a huge deal. It was a huge deal. And I'm telling you, putting that faith in God that you can get whatever it is you want in life and then working hard towards it. Because I could have wrote it down and said, this is what I want, but you gotta pay the cost to be the boss. So if I was still in my mentality of spending $600 a month, I would have got a $600 a month apartment, right? So I took a trip to Miami in 2020 with some friends of mine, and I had a dream. And first of all, I love the ocean. It cleanses me. It makes me feel so free. So being in it, that dirty South Beach water was still free and clearing to me. And I had the most vivid, lucid dreams while I was there. So anyways, I had a dream. And it was, I was walking around the walls of Jericho. Again, it's a biblical reference. And I don't know why I was dreaming about the walls of Jericho. I guess I kind of do now. But anyways, I'm walking around the walls of Jericho with the rest of the Israelites. And this man is running in the opposite direction of where the rest of us is walking. And he runs up to me and he stops me and he grabs me and he goes, we are fighting the greatest war mankind has ever seen. Our minds, they want control of our minds. And he runs away. And I don't always remember for years dreams that I've had in the past, but this dream to this day has stuck with me. He said, we are fighting the greatest war mankind has ever seen. They want control of our minds. And then he ran away. Who they are, completely besides the point, if you ask me. But I think it was a message, and it just goes to show how powerful your mind is. Because if somebody has control of your mind, they have control of your life. So I encourage you to take control of your mind before somebody else do. And I didn't just wake up one day like with complete control over my mind, because even though you're thinking your thoughts and making your decisions every day, that don't mean you the one in control of your mind. So one thing that I started to do when I first started my spiritual journey was affirmations. I would do daily affirmations in the mirror, and I would say them out loud. You use I am. I am beautiful. I am powerful. I am successful. I am confident. And just an example of how powerful these affirmations are and how they can be life-changing. In May of 2022, I updated my affirmation list. So I write it down in my journal frequently because, again, you put that pen to paper if you want to see action. But I also keep it in the notes on my phone. So I can have my affirmations with me wherever I go in case I don't have my journal with me, right? Anyways. So in May, I was like, I think I want to update my affirmations, add some more in, And there's two affirmations I added, or two of the affirmations that I added. I can travel whenever and wherever I want. And it is safe for me to fly first class. And I said these over and over and over again for months. And this is just me loving to travel. And every year I have a goal. I want to take more flights than I took the year before. And I have been doing it. Even in 2020, your girl was out here catching flights. Pandemic aware. Ain't stopping me. Anyways, I can travel whenever and wherever I want. And it is safe for me to fly first class. And I bring those two affirmations up in particular because let me show you just how powerful it is and how God be working in my life. In September, I got a job offer to be a flight attendant. First of all, I always wanted to be a flight attendant, but I didn't never even think it was going to happen. I just literally applied to Delta and got turned down. It's fine. I only cried for a second. But then I applied to SkyWest Airlines. Had no idea what SkyWest Airlines even was when I applied. I ain't even going to lie to you. I ain't going to lie. I might tell a joke, but I ain't going to tell no lie. I applied to SkyWest Airlines. I get the job offer. Now I'm a flight attendant. And not only am I a flight attendant, I took my first class trip. Had my first seat in first class on Thanksgiving Day. And this was in November. So if you recall before, I started saying this affirmation in May of this year. So it only took a couple months for my daily affirmation to become my daily reality.
And as I'm saying it every day in the mirror, I'm believing it's going to be true. I'm flying first class. What do you mean? And anytime I would get on the plane and walk past first class, I'm going to be looking at them like, I'll be joining you soon. I didn't just say it. I didn't just write it. I believed it to be true. And I prayed to God that this is something that could become my reality. I can travel whenever and wherever I want. I remember just not too long ago, I was telling my sister, I'm exhausted from flying. And not just working flights. I have a trip tomorrow. And when I'm done with that trip, I'm catching a flight to Florida to go see my sister. I can travel whenever and wherever I want because now I have that ability. Not only am I a flight attendant who's literally taking trips for work to places I've never been before, I use my travel benefits to go wherever, whenever I want. Like, do you feeling what I'm throwing out here? Affirmations are so powerful. Taking control of your mind is so powerful. Believing that God will make it happen. Happy, yes. But that God will make it happen for you is so powerful, and it is so critical that we take our mind seriously. And again, I'll bring up meditation. Meditation will put you on a whole nother level as it pertains to being centered and like really. And I had to do a lot of work to get here. So let's talk shadow work, because shadow work aided in my healing journey, right? I started my spiritual journey, which jump-started my healing journey. So when you're doing shadow work, you're essentially working with your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind, to uncover the parts of yourself that you repress and hide from yourself and from others. And this can include trauma or parts of you that you may consider undesirable. It's the dark and emotional aspect of your psyche. So when you do the shadow work, you have better clarity. It increases your compassion towards others and improves your overall wellness. I've been able to build better relationships, and you will too, and gain more confidence from doing the shadow work. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. The shadow work is the ugly work. It's the least fun part of my spiritual journey. I'm manifesting and seeing things that I want, that I never used to think I could have, that people would have never seen coming. That's fun, right? Hell, even meditating ain't that fun. It's relaxing sometimes though. It's relaxing. Buying new crystals, that's fun, but shadow work, I would be a liar if I told you that it was fun. But my commitment to shadow work is what gave me the authority and the groundwork, the ability to even start this podcast, right? How can I talk about healing trauma if I haven't even tried? If I have not begun to heal my trauma? I will be speaking on things I know nothing about, and we know I don't like to do that. But yeah, shadow work, it aided in my healing journey and was a huge, probably one of the biggest parts of my spiritual journey. So some of the ways I do my shadow work is through journaling, therapy, and most importantly, acknowledging the not so pretty things about my past. acknowledging the things that have hurt me and have affected me. And I'm big, or I used to be big on repressing and hiding my emotions. I mean, for goodness sake, I am the self-proclaimed queen of detachment. I find it to be easier to walk away from something than to deal with and acknowledge the fact that it hurt me. Because why would I do that? I have a life to live, and I have to be strong. And I spent so much time being the strong one that I repressed a lot of my emotions, and it caused a lot of buildup in my subconscious. I remember the first time I went to therapy. I was actually really young. I was only 18. And I don't even remember how the conversation started. But I'm like telling my therapist about all these things, all this trauma that I experienced in high school, and essentially things I do now to cope with it and deal with it. And I remember her saying, "Oh, so you kind of like helped yourself through it. You kind of got over it, without anybody else's help." And I was like, "Huh, yeah, I guess I did." Not only was I wrong, she was wrong. I found coping mechanisms to deal with the trauma is what I did. Instead of actually acknowledging that these things affected me in such a way, that these things hurt me, I found different ways to bandage the damage, right? I journaled a lot. Like, I think I mentioned that so many times. I have multiple journals. And one thing I mentioned, I don't know what episode it was, but I talked about healing emotional wounds for Black girls. It's a book that I read. I'm sorry, no, it was called The Black Girl's Guide to Healing Emotional Wounds. And after every chapter, there were like journal prompts, like 3 to 4 questions, maybe 2 to 4 questions, after each specific chapter to kind of reflect on your own experience, my own experience with whatever the chapter talked about. And it just seemed like after every chapter, when I sat down and I answered those questions, I realized things about myself that I just had no idea. I'm just like, oh my goodness, even reading through the chapter, I would not have thought of these things. And I remember at one point taking a break from the book because I was just so overwhelmed with emotion. And some truths hit me hard. I'm like, Kiana, you might have been a problem. You might have been a problem in some of these situations. I don't know. Or I don't exactly handle things in a healthy manner. And it seems healthy to me because it works for me, right? But just because it works for you doesn't mean it's good for you. You see what I'm saying? And I listened to the audio version of Woman Evolved by Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts. And after every chapter, she had journal prompts. So I will pause it and I will go to my journal and I will write these prompts. And it really gave me things to think about that I wouldn't normally think about, And actually taking that time to sit down and write it out. And sometimes I'm thinking I'm going to write about one thing, but as the words, as I'm putting the pen to paper and the words are coming out, it turns into something totally different from what I ever thought it would be. And I'm truly grateful to do the shadow work. I'm truly grateful for the things that rose to the surface as I worked through my shadow side. I'm actually getting kind of emotional just thinking about it, but
not in a bad way. It was just life altering for me to face the dark side of myself that I never wanted anybody to see, not even me. You see, my spiritual journey is equally my healing journey. As I grow within my spirituality and learn more about myself and grow closer to God, I'm also simultaneously unlearning all the bad habits, all the traumas, all the shadow sides to myself. You see, I identify as spiritual. And each and every day, I work on feeding my spirit more than feeding my flesh and growing closer to God. And I'm not perfect by far, but I'm working each and every day. My name is Kiana Brienne, and this is the House of Trauma podcast.